Thank you. Appreciate the opportunity, and good to see you all. I used to be on the board of the B&O Trail Association and Hendricks County Trail Development Association, and through that I learned so much about the process of trails and so on, and at the same time found an opportunity in the southern part of the county to do a similar project. Not as advanced at the time, it was more rustic. The opportunity there was the property was available, but just no money. So we had a little bit of a different approach. And I'm happy to today, this is about 8 years we've been working on that project. And the B&O Trail project is soon approaching a phase where it may be starting to encounter some of the things we've encountered relative to rustic trail development and equestrian trail development. And so we thought this would be a good opportunity to kind of go through what we've been working with on that trail, lessons learned, and just share some of that with you. To give you an idea of where this trail is located, the Pennsylvania Railroad corridor passes along the southern part of the county through Plainfield onto Amo and Coatesville onto Greencastle, and this trail is focused on that railroad corridor. And you can see the B&O Trail corridor across the northern part. This is providing really a wonderful sort of network for trails in this county. Our first opportunity was between Amo and Coatesville, these small towns. We had researched this as part of a cross-state trail initiative called the National Road Heritage Trail. And as we spoke with different towns and counties across the state, we actually found that Amo and Coatesville actually own the railroad corridor. We're willing to have it, used for this type of purpose right off the bat without us having to buy it. So that's why we've kind of launched our efforts there. And also we had an interesting nearby goal because back in '98, a volunteer group in Greencastle had built the 3-mile trail from Fillmore to Greencastle on the same corridor, so we had somebody to try to connect to in the near term. This is a more detailed map showing the status of this trail right now. Amo to Coatesville is open for bicycle pedestrian, and it's also open for equestrian as a separate trail. One interesting tidbit about that equestrian trail, it's the first one in the state to connect two towns in modern times. So it's kind of a neat feature to have here locally. And then from Coatesville into Putnam County, the bike pedestrian trail is open, as well as from Fillmore to Greencastle. And there's just one more little bit here within the town of Fillmore for a 12-mile corridor. So it's been very satisfying to be able to connect up with them. So this is a sort of a typical scene of the rustic trail. This is the old railroad bed here. In this particular section, you see that we have it signed for bike, pedestrian, and horse all in the same path. This is near Coatesville going towards Amo. The first 1,000 feet or so, one of our challenges, and it'll be encountered on the B&O as well, the corridor here is about 130 feet wide, but it's a very elevated rail bed, and it goes down very steep on both sides, and then there's some drainage issues, so there's really no room down on the lower parts to put a horse trail. And since we were just doing a natural surface here to begin with, we figured it would be functional to just have everybody use this first section, and then about 1,000 feet in, the grade comes up, and the horse trail then shoots off to the side, and it's separate from there on. Kind of showing how we provide protection or control access to the corridor. Motor vehicles were an issue, ATVs, and so on, back when we first started this project. Originally we had done a little more rustic entrance than this. The Parks Department has helped us with this interesting design, which they've developed. These bollard designs are what they use up at McLeod Park, and so they just build them for us right here in this trail here. These are removable PVC set in a concrete pole with a chain and a lock, and so you just undo the lock and you can pull these bollards out and drive maintenance vehicles in or emergency vehicles. So that's been a very effective and nice looking entryway, and very inexpensive. These materials are nothing, and the short sections of decorative split rail as well. Backing them up a little bit further away, you can see, okay, this is the railroad bed, and the bicycle pedestrian trail goes through here, horse trail goes through there. Natural surface, this is fine for mountain bikes, it's definitely nice for hiking, walking dogs, and so on. Eventually we want to get this upgraded to a smooth packed stone, but one thing at a time. One of the things that was very crucial at the beginning of this project was the local support. This was the Amo Town Council president at the time. He would Reed Haney, and this was the first day we started clearing it. He was out there with his old bush hog and helping us get it cleared, so that was definitely a big plus having the local support. And also helpful is support from the state. This is Steve Morris from DNR helping us dig up tree roots and so on from the trail path early on. This is one of the early scenes leaving Amo, and it was just so attractive, just the rustic cleanup, giving it the tunnel effect. So right from the beginning, it was useful. We didn't have to put much money into it, just volunteer work to get it open. I mean, you certainly can't ride a road bike on it or a rollerblade, but at least it gets started and it's used. One of the big challenges between these towns, and one of the reason this corridor was still available in the towns that bought it, was they wanted to build a sewer company plant that would serve both towns on this corridor. So right halfway between these two towns, here's the sewer plant that covers the whole width of the corridor. The old railroad was where their driveway is and ran right through their garage and so on. So at first look, okay, here's a challenge. What do you do with something like this? And the sewer company actually gave us an easement. The towns gave us an agreement, and the sewer company gave us an easement on the mile and a half that they owned, and turned into a real nice packed stone trail. In what looked like it was an insurmountable obstacle at midpoint of the trail. Okay, another key issue that we run into is erosion or management of water flow. Especially when you have packed stone, that's something you really got to pay close attention to. Is the runoff and does it cross your trail? So a key thing was on this trail, because the sewer plant was high and the water would all drain down to here. We had to make this trail slope a little bit, but not too much. Wanted the water to drain off, but not too much. There was two key places where there was going to be flow across from outlet pipes. And so we had pipes put in underneath the trail there, but then we had to pay attention. Over time, we found that there were one or two other places where erosion would occur just because of naturally water would collect in some places. So we adjusted. We built a sort of a gutter along the edge of it, and then put new pipes underneath the trail and so on. So water management is a big thing in horse trails as well as these natural surface trails, like the packed stone trail. We had some issues when this would overflow because of just too much rain. Water would flow in here and then erode across the trail there. So all it took actually was just a little hand-dug trench going over all the way across the bottom, and that was enough to encourage the water to go to the pipe and get out of there quick. So it was interesting what little bit it takes sometimes. And a little patience to be out there enough times to see exactly how things are working. And also, this is another sign of sort of signage. We've not two reasons. We've went for initially these laminated signs that I print off on my own computer and take the Kinkos and laminate them and put up with transparent duct tape, which is amazingly durable. It's flexible. And two reasons for that is because we've got so many different types of users and need to manage who goes where and so on. It wasn't clear what type and how many signs we need on this trail. So this was a good way to inexpensively try some different signage arrangements. All right, right behind that sewer plant was one of our first big construction challenge. It was an old railroad bridge, 60 feet long, going over a pretty good-sized creek. Fortunately, it was very structurally sound. It had all the ties in place. We had a railroad engineer inspect it, and he said this thing could hold a train still. So we worked on, okay, how can we develop this? We didn't have a lot of money. We didn't have a lot of equipment. Okay, how can we develop this in a way that doesn't require big equipment to bring stuff in, doesn't require a lot of money, but is still safe and interesting and useful? What we came up with, rather than trying to cover the bridge with decking, we said, well, let's just fill in the gaps between the ties. We've already got the ties there we can walk on, so let's just fill in the gaps. And came up with, we put in these 2x10, 2x12s, and these are resting on the same steel structure that the ties are on either end, and then we just sandwiched them in there so they stay in the middle, and then screwed in decking boards on top. So we were able to bring, pieces in little at a time in our trucks and our cars and just work on them little at a time with a number of good volunteers and hand tools. A lot of batteries used through this whole process. A lot of drilling and cutting. Okay, so through the summer we worked on the design for the railings. Next, please. We had a lot of different options, but we came up with the design that actually just bolted right into the ties. Very simple design. We kind of developed as we went. We didn't have a drawing when we started building it. It was exactly this. We knew what the basic things we need, and then, for example, we knew we wanted a certain height for the top, which we got that. Bottom one, we thought we were going to put 3 boards across, but then at the end we thought, it really only needs 1 more down here. And it took us about a month and a half developing the techniques on how to install it and get it installed to get this installed. So then, having developed our technique, we planned one particular day. We had 2 shifts of volunteers lined up, had all the equipment lined up, and built the whole other side in one day. It was quite a scene that day. It was very impressive. We were very thankful the volunteers that brought out. And what was amazing, we were working on this all day long. This last bit, About a half an hour after we were done, we took these fencing down and everything, the first hikers came through. It was like they were waiting, like waiting around the corner, just waiting for this to be done, and they would come. It was, we had two grants that were really big in this, were the SEBA Foundation provided us the grant to help with this, and the Central Indiana Community Foundation in acquiring all the equipment and supplies for this.
Greg,
Yes.
how did you handle the interface between the actual wood deck and the bridge and then where like the gravel ground or whatever comes right up to that?
Well, initially, before these bollards were put in, we actually had a step. It was just the ground came up to the base of the first tie, and it was about a foot step up. So on both ends, it was like that. And so, and we really actually kind of did that on purpose. We didn't go to a lot of extra effort to get rid of that step because it forced bicyclists to stop, get off their bikes. We didn't really necessarily want them riding across the bridge at that point. It was just safer if you're going to get off and then you can walk across the bridge. And often you stop there anyway because it's really a beautiful view from either side. So that was our initial. When the Parks Department put these bollards in, we had a pile of 53's gravel about 1,000 foot back there for some projects, and they went ahead and just brought it down here and smoothed it in, so now you can just smoothly ride across. Built up with gravel on both ends. All right, so now, okay, we got the bike pedestrian trail kind of set up, so we were going to attack the horse trail, getting that cleared, the parallel horse trail. The corridor is 130, in some places 160 feet wide, so we had a lot of room to the one side to do a separate horse trail, and the railroad bed actually was shifted to the side a little bit, so it actually made more room. So we had a good day in January when it was 50 degrees and had a whole crew out there clearing. There was one particular area that looked like it was pretty easy to clear. And so we started there. Okay, so now that we get that horse trail section open, we wanted to try some horses on it. see how they liked it. So we gathered in Coatesville, this group of horseback riders, and you can see it looked like it was plenty wide for them. In fact, some of them thought it was like a highway. So the one thing I was surprised about learning was we started clearing them this wide, and there was some that said, well, it's like a highway, and so I realized it doesn't have to be that wide. It can be a single track that's weaving, and it's kind of nice that way too. So in some places it's like that, some places it's narrower. It's nice to have the variety. And then it helps, one thing that's really nice about a horse trail that parallels a rail trail is you always have easy access to somewhere near the horse trail. Because you just go down the railroad bed, and this is that crew doing that heavy work on the horse trail. So we were just able to get the equipment right back in there within 20 or 30 feet of where we're doing the work without too much trouble. All right, so back to the creek where we just did that bridge. We got the horses to the water. We've led the horses to water, but we couldn't let them cross yet. So this is the west bank of the Crittenden Creek. Over time, there had been horseback riders that had challenged this, and they could do it, but it's not something you invite people publicly to try. So we developed a plan. We had to get this. It turned out it was in a 100-year floodplain, so we had to get a permit from DNR's Division of Water with our design. And Yvette Rollins was really key in getting to come up with a design for how you do this from the experience in trails in Brown County and so on. Amy Inman was really big in helping us get the application for with DNR for the permit. Indiana Horse Council, Wes brought his skid loader there, and we had some volunteers, and we started carving away at the side of basically to make it a more gentle slope was our objective here. And then once he carved out a gentler slope, we started digging by hand this network of deeper ditches, and you'll see why in a moment. Put in geotech over the top of all that, and then laid in riprap to hold the geotech in place. Plus, it provides drainage down the sides and to the sides. And then we covered up with the loose stuff more so. This is the crew. We had Yvette and Rex and Karen and Wes there. This has really been a great surface this has been 6 years ago. The surface has stayed pretty well. Down here we've had some erosions. We've had to go back and work on and reinforcing it and so on. But in general, it's stayed to be a really good construction technique. We just need to work a little bit on how we handle the lower areas. Now there's 2 banks, so this is the other bank. We had a different group of volunteers for this one. Willard Johnson brought out his tractor, the front end loader, and this is actually a backhoe, and that turned out to be a godsend. The backhoe made a big difference. If we had a backhoe on this side too, it probably would have been a lot easier, and we could have done some different things with it. So that was a lesson learned just in this one project. When doing this type of work, have a backhoe too, because it can really get you through the tougher stuff in the ground. Whereas with the front end loader, it's harder. It's like trying to dig in stones with a snow shovel on the way sometimes. Same technique with the riprap and the geotech. And then finally, it's a golden trail. And what a difference. This area now is, it's just transformed in just how it looks and feels. You can see back here, there's some wooden bollards we've put in. We've put these also on this other side to discourage four-wheelers from trying to use this as a joyride. And we haven't had any problems with that, so that's good. So now to the smaller creeks. So now we've got a trail, horse trail and bike pedestrian trail connecting the two towns. Along the way, there's these smaller little seasonal tributaries. That normally when it's dry, there's not an issue, you can just go right through it, but when it would get wet, they would just be really bogged down. You can see more. This is from the side. This is the drainage. This is the stream that's dry right now. Put in a couple of pipes, riprap over it, and then a nice smooth packed stone. So this area now, even when it's wet, it's a very good firm surface. This is standing on the bike pedestrian trail. You can see the stream goes over to the horse trail there. So that's the separation here between the bike ped and the horse trail. And then this goes underneath the culverts, underneath the railroad bed. Another one of our horse trail, one interesting thing that a horse trail to the side does is it gives you different views on this corridor you wouldn't have if you're just on the bike trail. The bike ped trail is up here. This horse trail actually shows you this really interesting architecture of this culvert underneath it. It's really the neat stone. It's not just a pipe. It's very interesting. Several of the culverts along the way are that way, so you see those from the horse trail. And the horse trail is actually a hiking trail as well. It's officially open for hiking and horseback riding. So it's a nice. So having that type of a thing, people can have a round trip hike, but on two different trails. So it's not like you're turning on the same one. We don't allow bikes on this horse trail for several reasons. One is it's so narrow, and you could be surprised very easily. There's just not the room, and so on. And we don't allow horses on the bike trail, just to keep the separation. It helps. There's several benefits of the separation. One is when you do that, you don't care about cleaning up manure because it's all separated from the bike pedestrians. Another is just the proximity. There's horses and bicycles aren't used to each other, and so you can keep them as separated as possible. There's a few areas like around the sewer plant where we only had that 15 feet. Okay, there's 1,000 feet where they shared, and then there's signs that point out that yield to horses and so on. So it's manageable when you have just the short distances like that, but where you can make them separate for the long haul, it works out well. Okay, thank you.